Hey everyone, it's Jay Stone, your host as always of Both Laugh, the Dying Scene Quarantine Chat Show. We are up to episode 47 and counting. We've got a few more coming before the end of the year. And then who knows? It seems like the pandemic's not going anywhere, so we'll just keep on rolling. Make sure that you like and subscribe to wherever you find this podcast in whatever format, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Spotify, whether you're on iTunes or iHeartRadio or some other platform. Make sure you like us, make sure you follow us, make sure you subscribe to us, and hey, maybe leave us a comment. We actually like them. The dopamine's a good thing. We've also got some things happening on the actual Dying Scene website front. Stay tuned for that, but let's just say that reports of our demise have been greatly exaggerated. If you're interested in joining the Dying Scene team, get a hold of one of us. You know where to find us on Instagram or Twitter, or send an email to jay@dyingscene.com, and maybe we'll have you join the team. But now it's episode 47 of Both Laugh, the Dying Scene Quarantine Chat Show. Our guest this time is Jesse Ahern. He's a singer-songwriter from the greater Boston area, specifically from the mean streets of Quincy, Massachusetts. It's coming up right after the intro music, which, as always, is by my favorite band of the year, Kali Masi. Stay tuned. Catch you on the other side. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Both Laugh, the Dying Scene Quarantine Chat Show. We are up to episode 47 so far on this show because the pandemic isn't going away. And this is going to be a cool episode. So far on this show, we've talked to guests from everywhere from the Pacific Northwest to Southern California, from Portland, Maine to Gainesville, Florida. We've talked to people from 5 different foreign countries: South Africa, Germany, Serbia, Austria, and China, if you're filling out the bingo sheet at home. But this week, we're staying close to home, from sort of my theoretical old stomping grounds, the areas of around Quincy and Dorchester, Massachusetts. Ladies and gentlemen, the recently Boston Music Award nominated Mr. Jesse Ahern. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Jason, how are you? We're live on Zoom TV, huh?
We are live on Zoom TV. This is the state of the world now.
That's good. That's great.
I'm happy. Like I said, I'm happy to do this. It's nice to talk to people from all over the place, but it's also nice to talk to people from home. And I don't have to dig for my connections to wherever, like Pittsburgh or Pacific Northwest. It's like, oh, I worked in Quincy and I lived in Dorchester for a long time. And my mom's from Dorchester, and it's my old stomping ground. So this is good. It feels like homey.
Yeah, I agree. It's an honor and a privilege, man, to speak with you. Dying Scene is definitely a great publication. So, I mean, I'm very happy to do it. And I've been listening, and it's really cool, man. You do a good job of what you do. I think I met you a number of years ago when I was playing in Brighton Music Hall. I think that was
maybe at a Wreck the Hall show. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that was one of the first times I met you, and I go around a million times. I mean, you see you everywhere. So it's a pleasure. Trust me, I'm happy to do this.
I never know. I mean, it's a little different now doing this show and people can see you, but I never know when I'm out and about, if I'm taking pictures at a show, who actually knows who I am and whatever. And I keep a low profile mostly that way. I keep my head down and take pictures. And so I was just shooting the Bouncing Souls face-to-face Lenny Lashley show this weekend, and Lenny came up to me after he played and put his arm on me, and it took a second. Like, I've known Lenny for a decade or so anyway, and I was like, oh shit. Hi bud. Because I just, especially now being out and about during the pandemic and everybody's got masks on and whatever, it still takes me a second to process, because I usually just have my head down, take my pictures, and stand in the back because I'm an old punk rock guy.
Yeah. How old are you anyhow?
42, just turned 42.
We're similar in age. I'll be 44 next week. So,
oh wow, happy early birthday.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I've seen you around a whole bunch of times. And then when was your first show so far in the pandemic?
So the first one, actually, I think Michael Caine from Michael Caine and the Morning Afters, a great Worcester-based rock and roll band. I think Michael was the first one that I had on. It was probably April of last year. Maybe when we started doing the actual show. Yeah.
I actually, you know what? I saw that one was on Instagram Live, right?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah, I definitely tuned in. I love Michael. He's a good guy, great band, and I think he's putting out an album pretty soon himself, right?
Yeah, we were talking about that album a year and a half ago when this whole thing started, and that's the slow moving wheels of the music industry. If you're not Adele, you know.
Yeah, I guess so, and hopefully it's worth the wait. I'm sure it is.
I think so. I like what I've heard.
Yeah, that's right. He's put out what, 2 songs or
I
something
think so.
like that.
Yeah.
Both are great songs. The last one he put out's really good. I really dig it. Well, maybe to do some shows with them this spring. I'd like to maybe get together with him and do a few small barroom shows, I guess we'll call them, right? Or even, who knows, something better than that. But it's great. It's good. It's good to be talking to anyone related to music, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, especially when you're at home and you've got kids. I know your little one turns 2 in very short order or something, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, Thursday he turns 2, and let me apologize in advance anyway. Three kids, I got a dog and a cat, and they're all up, and it should be crazy in here within the next hour, but it's all right.
That's
Like
great.
this is cool because I'm in my room, which I turned into my studio as well. So it's like when I'm in here, no one really bothers me. Occasionally I might get the dog clawing at the door to get away from the kids, or one of the kids comes in crying,
Yeah.
It's all relevant, I mean, it's fun. It's
It's
good.
the nature of the beast nowadays.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You have a child too, correct?
Yeah, she'll be 14 in a couple of weeks, which is
Oh, wow.
which is bizarre. I mean, it's awesome. She's like the best kid in the world. I know everybody says that about their kids or whatever, but she's a good kid. She's mostly pretty easy. She's chill. She'll come to shows with us and just stand and hang out. And she's probably gotten a little spoiled, if you can be spoiled going to punk rock shows, but she, like at the Bouncing Souls face-to-face show, she got to be in the VIP area because I've known both of those bands forever. And so she gets to go to punk rock shows, but sit in the cushy chairs upstairs and kind of away from it. And so she's sort of adjacent to it, but she knows it's cool because it's my world. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. So I can't imagine having 3 kids at those very different age brackets during a pandemic. That's gotta make you pull your hair out.
I shouldn't take much credit. My wife is the one who keeps it all together. She's like the glue that holds everything together. It's like I'm actually the 4th child of the.
Right.
She's watching us all. She's good. I mean, my son's going to be 14 too in January.
Yeah, that's
same thing.
My daughter, January 5th, will be 14.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My son, January 7th, kill me. So 2 days. Yeah, January 7th.
Yeah.
Actually, if he was born a day later, or maybe it was 2 days later, it's January 8th, 7th. I don't know. He'll kill me. But he would have been Elvis because he was supposed to be born on Elvis's birthday. But.
Oh, okay. That's funny. Yeah, my daughter was she was born late, so she was actually due at the end of 2007, and
wow.
It's considered like a tax break for the full year. If you have a kid at any point during the year, it's considered you get the tax write-off essentially for the year. And she held on 5 days into the New Year's,
yeah. Wow.
Which is things you don't think about until you're a parent.
No, isn't it true? I know. That's a good old tax break.
Right.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, it has been a pandemic. It has been strange. What was the first live show you went out to?
The first show that I went back to was also Bouncing Souls at the House of Blues, that big benefit for Stu, which had all of the bands played at, and it was weird. I'll tell you, it was weird. I mean, I've been going to House of Blues shows obviously since it's been House of Blues, but obviously well before it was House of Blues too. I've seen Bouncing Souls a million times, and it was weird to be back in a room of 2,200 people unmasked and all that close to each other and sweaty, and like it got easier as the night went on, but just it was a little bit of sensory overload for a while, because we had been at home for 15 months or whatever at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to think, we thought we were out of it at that point, right?
Right.
I mean, it was looking pretty good, and everyone was happy and everyone was getting out, and then bam, we're back in the same spot. Which, I mean, I guess we're not in the same spot, but we're still pretty deep in this thing, And
Yeah, I hope that we're in a better spot, because I
yeah,
think I know a lot of people have been vaccinated. I know a lot of people haven't been, but I know a lot of people have been vaccinated, and I think that sort of takes the edge off, that even if the total caseload goes back up, which it seems like it's going back up, especially around here, I think that I don't think that the hospitalization rate and the death rates will go up like they were a year ago. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
fingers crossed, because I got some stuff coming up in 2022.
Right. Well, so
I mean,
let's start there, actually. So that's kind of where I start most episodes, is by talking about, because really the origin of doing this show was to talk to people who were shutting plans down essentially during 2020, and to figure out what they were doing to sort of stay connected and stay artistic and whatever. So what would 2020 have looked like for you if the world hadn't shut down? I know you had just done the Dropkick Frank Turner tour in Europe a little bit before the world shut down. Was there any semblance or any sense while you guys were over there that shit was getting kind of weird? Because it feels like you made it back home maybe a couple of weeks before all hell broke loose.
oh yeah, it was crazy. Like, it seemed like we were just ahead of it, during the whole tour. The beginning of the tour, it didn't really seem like anyone was really talking about it. By the end, we knew it was right behind us,
Yeah.
So we were back maybe not even 2 weeks when they said that Milan was like a hot spot, which we were in Milan. We did a show in Milan, and we had a day off in Milan too. So we were
Jeez.
wild.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, they didn't have any tests then, but I had COVID after that, so I'd assume I didn't get it over there. And yeah, I mean, my year was looking pretty good. I was over in Europe and having a great tour, and a couple of things, one thing led to another, and then some people made some contacts for me, and then I was going to be on tour with Chuck Reagan in November of that year, and then right before we came home, I was announced on the Dropkick's Rancid tour and the Jerry Cinnamon as well. And so when things shut down, I mean, yeah, it kind of sucked, but it sucked for everybody, right? So
Right.
like I perspective, and I don't know, it took me a little while to get back into the swing of things, but I kind of jumped into the studio and just started making music, and that's all I know how to do when I'm in that sort of mood anyway. So it's like, it was pretty therapeutic for me, to say the least. So, I mean, I think I went right in the studio and I did some things with some local musicians, and it was pretty cool because we all were in the studio, but we were like socially distanced in another room, masked up.
Yeah.
And then obviously we didn't do that during the shutdown, but I'm saying, like, afterwards. And yeah, I still made music, but yeah, my 2020 was looking pretty good, and I had a couple of tours that were on the book, and I was talking to a few other people, maybe one more tour out of that. Like everybody else. I mean, I'm lucky. I learned to trade when I was younger, so I can come home and work. And
Yeah.
not everyone's that lucky. I mean, so I don't know, I was blessed.
Did you do that thing where you sort of, like, I know especially the early days of the pandemic, for a while it seemed they told us 2 weeks, stay home, and then things will open back up. So it seemed like, okay, maybe April things will open up, and then it seemed like, okay, maybe June things will open back up, and then it was like, okay, maybe September. Like, at what point did you sort of throw in the towel and say, look, 2020 is not happening? Like, how deep into it did you get before you realized that, touring and whatever as we know it isn't going to happen for a while?
Pretty early on, because like I said, I've developed a relationship with some of the guys in the Dropkick Murphys, and I was in talks with one of them, and he's in the business, right? That's his business.
Right.
And
Right.
you know, he was pretty blunt about it. And, you know, I don't think he had high hopes at all, really, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah.
you know, you started seeing that domino effect happen to all these bands, you know. So I just happened to know someone that was going through it to that extent. And, you know, so I kind of I knew the goose was cooked, right? I mean, I didn't think 2020 was going to happen at all. I would say probably when they canceled the Dropkick Rancid Jerry Cinnamon tour, I figured, oh, maybe September. And then once the summer came, I mean, we knew it, you know, just with everything going on in the world, not just a pandemic. It
Oh,
just didn't
sure.
seem.
Yeah.
But I would have actually, I shouldn't say I would have erased that year, because look at the beginning of 2020 for me was great. I was in the room with Frank Turner and
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
So I'd be a real asshole to say I wish I could erase 2020, but yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, if you didn't feel some effect of that, then I don't know, you know, because I mean, I definitely felt the big effect of that. I'm sure you did too. And we know so many people that hit hard times, you know, businesses. And
Yeah.
so,
And working in the even tangentially in the addiction treatment field. I mean, obviously, those services for a lot of people went away. Homeless shelters closed, as we know. The situation in Boston got exponentially worse than it's been for a long time, and a lot of those services for those people, it's tough to, like, if you have the means, you can pivot to doing telehealth services or whatever, right? You can do AA meetings on your phone or on your laptop or whatever. If you're an unhoused person, if you don't have much in the way of resources, you're shit out of luck, really. And so, and those were the services that got shut down and I think affected the most. So the people who work in, so obviously people who work in the music industry, the live music industry especially, like they knew right off the rip that those jobs weren't going to come back for a while, right? Some of us were lucky to have jobs still, but we never saw a dip in the amount of people who needed services, right? There's more people were at home, they were drinking more. Every commercial you watched on TV was like, it's margarita clock or whatever. And so like that became our problem. The problems on our little end got exponentially worse instead of better and easier. So it's been a weird time.
oh yeah, it's got to be hard to see all that too. You know, like you said, you've been in the field for a long time, and I mean, it's not easy to begin with to be in that field, right?
Right.
And then
Right.
top of it, and then you know, and I'm not casting a cloud over the pandemic, meaning taking anything away from it, but those are the people that got left behind, because, like, you know, a lot of people died taking their own life, they take their own lives, or you know, died from abuse and all these other, you know, traumatic things that happen due to alcoholism or drug addiction, right? And we don't hear anything about it, you know.
Right.
And there's people
Right.
still trying to get this thing going, and yeah, it was really hard, you know. And it's hard to see people struggle in any light. But yeah, that definitely was a hard one, you know, seeing people out the street, you know, going down Mass Ave, and you know, that, I mean, it's crazy to see all the tents and all the homeless people and all, you know, it's just.
Yeah, if anybody is listening from outside of the, we'll probably get a lot of people from the Boston area that listen to this, and so they know the Mass Ave area pretty well. If people are not from this area, Mass Ave is, in some ways, it's one of the gateways really to Boston, right? There's an exit right off the highway, which I don't even know what number it is now that they changed all the exit numbers, but it's an exit right off the highway. It's right near Boston University Medical Center, and it's sort of like the dividing line between Southie and Dorchester. And if you've listened to Dropkick Murphys songs or Street Dog songs, you know those areas. And it has always been, it's always been an area that's drawn a lot of people who were unhoused, because there's a lot of methadone programs there. There's a lot of social services there. So people gather in those spots. And the last 4 or 5 years, especially, the population there has boomed for a variety of reasons that we don't have to get into here, but especially during the pandemic. When I tell people how bad it looks down there with the amount of tents, with the amount of people just in the streets, it's tough to actually put it into words what it looks like. Especially, it's an area that's never been great, right? But it is exponentially worse than anything else you can picture. I've never seen anything like it in this country, to be honest with you. It's like if you'd watch Anthony Bourdain in years past, and he'd go to a place that was a real impoverished nation, and there's people living in tents and people just like in the street, because that's what it's. I mean, it's not unlike that, except it's right in like the gateway to Boston if you're taking the highway. It's bizarre.
It is bizarre. It's very sad. I unfortunately in this point of my life, I try to avoid going down that way.
Yeah. Yep.
I hate to say that, and I can't avoid it. I have to do that. I have to go that way a lot of times when going into town. But it's my heart goes out to anyone that's struggling. And if there is anyone listening, or I mean, not listening, but when you rebroadcast this, or however anyone listens, I'm always there to help. Right. So they can always be. There's always people that are in the field, or people that are in recovery. I'm in recovery, and I'm always willing to help. And
that's been a thing in our scene that really kind of caught me by surprise. Maybe even the last, I don't know, maybe the last 10 years or so. But the amount of people in our scene, not just in the punk rock scene, but even specifically in like the Boston area punk rock scene, there's a lot of sober people. There's a lot of people that go to meetings. There's a lot of people that represent being in recovery. And that I feel like wasn't a thing. And maybe social media plays a little bit of a part in that, but that I feel like wasn't necessarily a thing 10 years ago, 20 years ago, or when we were kids listening to punk rock. That like there was the straight edge scene, but that's different than people who have fallen down and gotten back up and gotten in recovery and things like that. There's a really, I think, interesting recovery community in the punk rock and music communities, especially around here.
Oh yeah, it's great in Boston. It's good. Boston recovery is good anyway. It's some of the best. I've been around a little bit, and like you said, there's a lot of people. There's always people out there to help. So we got that going for us. It's a good thing.
Right.
Yeah. So it's 2020, man. It was tough. In 2021, let's get on 2021.
Well, right. 2021, most of it hasn't been a picnic necessarily either, but things have opened up a little bit. What was your first show back out playing? I know you did a couple of like live streams, especially with Lenny and Lenny Lashley is who I'm referencing. I don't remember if we talked about him while we were recording or before, but Lenny Lashley is an old pal of both of ours. Speaking of people in recovery. And I know you guys have been pretty close and did a few shows together, but what was your first show back out playing in front of people, not just in front of a Instagram screen?
Show, geez, I don't even know. It was just in September. I think that was my first show back. Let me think. I did 2 live streams, which, were live streams. I'm not going to play them up. But then that, I mean, they were great, like Heather, who, was running I think she's booking the Midway now, and she was running a live stream. Tiny Oak booking, I think.
Yep, that sounds right.
Does a great job. So I don't want to like downplay the live stream. It was great. It's still pretty cool as far as I'm concerned. And but the first live show I did back, so I played up in Guilford at the Berkeley to Boston tour, or Boston to Berkeley, I think it is, right? And I did like the side stage, which, was a side stage. I'm not, going to say anything different. I mean, it wasn't that many people there, but it was cool. I got out, warmed up, and then I played Worcester the next night on the main stage, and it was like night and day, It was like, I don't know, there must have been a couple of people in there when I played. So yeah, it was pretty wild to go from like, a live stream.
Yeah.
Especially being on the stage with, the Dropkick Murphys, the Bronx, and Rancid, and there's the little old bulky me, right?
No pressure. Yeah, seriously.
So, I didn't know. I was pretty nervous, to be honest with you, when I went back up there. I mean, even in 2020, when we were first talking about me going out that tour, I was like, oh man, where am I going to fit in on this bill? But surprisingly, I did pretty well, and that was a good show. I had a fun time, and I was pretty loose. And I'm not always that loose when I'm playing. Sometimes I might take myself a little too serious. and I was loose and I was feeling it. It was great. And then I didn't play anything else for another couple of weeks. And then I went out to the Midwest and did a couple of shows, and then went down south and did a few shows. And they went great, man. I'm blessed. I've been blessed with a lot of good shows over the last few years. And you couldn't ask to go out with any better, with better bands, right?
Right. Yeah, that's about as good as it gets.
Yeah, that's as good as it gets. So like, I don't know, like I really, maybe like, let's rewind a little and say 2021 wasn't all that bad, but yeah,
right.
It took a lot of 2021 to make a new album. And, I went out with some incredible bands and, just made some more incredible contacts and, just riding this thing, right? Like I don't have high expectations, but it's also nice to know that, I've done some of the things I've done, right? I'm not getting any younger, and I got 3 kids. I got a wife. I got a cat, and I got a mortgage, and I have all that stuff. But I don't know, man. I got balance in my life, and maybe 2020 showed me a little bit more of that. Like it was hard, but like I was forced to take a step back and say, this is all out of my control, right? Everything's out, it's out of my control. So like, why not just take a step back and enjoy where I'm at, and so yeah, getting onto it, like, yeah, 2021 was great. I had a grand old time making an album, and I had a great time playing those shows, and I think I got a good year ahead of me now. So it's like, I got my health. I don't know what I have to complain about, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, so like 2021, but also 2021 was like a roller coaster because, that tour happened, and I wasn't initially, when they announced that tour, I didn't make the cut because of restrictions and, whatever. It's none of my business, but I didn't make the cut. And then I got put on a few shows. So it's like, it was pretty cool, because I went from like being like, wow, I'm gonna play with Rancid. Like I love Rancid since I've been, 9th grade.
Yeah.
Right. But like, this is amazing. Like, this is crazy. Like my friends would call me like, are you really playing with Rancid? Like, I've played with the Dropkicks a lot. So like, I used to get that a lot too when I first started going out with them, and I was like pretty taken back myself. And then all of a sudden I didn't think I was going to be on that tour. And I was like, oh, that's a bummer, but whatever, And so it was like a roll. 2021 was definitely a ride, but it was good.
Yeah, and I think around here, it seems like everybody is sort of 1 or 2 degrees removed from the Dropkicks, from somebody in the Dropkicks camp. So when you talk about Dropkicks, like, yeah, it's cool, but then it's like everybody's got their connections, whether it's to old lineups or new lineups or whatever. Or but then Rancid is like, whoa.
That was pretty wild, man. It was cool, to say the least. Because I remember when I was in Europe and I was talking to someone about it, and I didn't have any expectations. I was like, yeah, sure, throw me in there. Like,
yeah.
I was almost embarrassed to be like, yeah, sure, that's great. Like I said, I'm just this, I'm a folkie, really. Whatever. I own whatever. I don't know, but and then, when I actually got put on, I was kind of blown away by that, but everything that goes up must come down too, right? so, it was good. I had, like I said, the shows and the 4 or 5 shows I did in September were great, and Nashville was awesome. I had a great time in Nashville. Atlanta was great. And out the Midwest was great. I got to play with the Mighty Ball Stones,
Pretty awesome thing, no matter where you're from. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so, right? You and I are from the same age group, right? So, you naming all these bands is like, that's what we grew up on, among so many other things. I'm not, I'm all over the map with music, but
yeah, but they were the band really from at least from around here that we had that sort of resonated nationally until Dropkicks came along. But obviously the Boss Stones were doing it well before the Dropkicks were. But yeah, they were the band, and it seems like like they had the big hit, obviously, with the Let's Face It album, but it seemed like we kind of knew who they were before that nationally. They did the whole thing and they were in Clueless or whatever. So they were like the band you could hang your hat on, that like, oh, they were from Boston. I know there are obviously a million other punk rock bands and hardcore bands from this area, but the Bosstones were like the one who started the scene, really.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. They're a great band. It was cool to see them. I haven't seen them in a long time. I don't even remember the last time I saw them up until then. I shouldn't lie. I think I went in a few years ago when Lenny might have did like a song in one of their sets, but
Oh, he did Bricklayer or something, I think. Yeah.
yeah, I think that must have been like, maybe it was 2018 or something like that. That was probably the last time. I remember like going to when they first started doing, what was it, the Throwdown?
Yeah.
Like, it's like that on my new album I have a song. It's called Just a Moment, right? I talk
The very first song. Yep.
yeah, I talk about standing in line and waiting for tickets, and it's just like just saying that just like brought me back. Like that's kind of where that inspiration came for that song. Like those good old days of like having a wristband and waiting for a ticket, or for an album to come out, or like even a video would come from the video. Like remember waiting for like Beastie Boys videos.
It's funny you saying that. Just you saying that, I had this very specific image of waiting to get into the Middle East and go upstairs just to buy tickets for a hometown throwdown, which must have been probably, I don't know, 97 or 98. It was like the third or fourth hometown throwdown. I have a very specific image of walking into like the office somewhere buried in the back upstairs at the Middle East just to buy tickets. So that meant getting on the train, going down to Central Square, like hopping trains, going down to Central Square just to stand in line, just to buy tickets to a show that wasn't going to be for like 5 months or whatever it was.
They got, people don't even have ticket stubs anymore. I was talking to my kid who, we were just talking about, you were talking about your daughter being spoiled. My son's the same way. He's spoiled. Problem, no. So many shows he's been to, and there's not even any ticket stubs anymore. You can have this like print down. Oh, it's on my phone, my app. I was looking through my ticket stubs not too long ago, and I don't really hoard too many of them, but I've got a specific few that I keep, that they're in a bag, and I look once in a while and go, I can't believe I went to that show. I don't know, but I guess I don't know. There's always some light to be shined. It's like it's so easy to get music now, right? I mean, it's a bad thing and it's a good thing. It's like kind of like an overload,
right?
But it's also, I saw that you a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was a month ago, I don't know, you mentioned Morgan Wade, because you went and saw
with Lucero,
bro, and like I happened to stumble across her on Spotify, and I thought she was pretty good. And then, I was checking her out. I was like following her on the Instagram, like we all do.
Yeah.
And next, she's opening up the bands, that I really like. It's like,
and I think she's got a bunch more. I think she's doing like stadium shows with, like, I know very little of the modern sort of pop country world. That's not my thing. But from what I understand, she's opening a handful of stadium shows. I think she's playing with Jason Isbell for a couple shows, which, I mean, everybody likes Jason Isbell, but I think there's some country guy. The name doesn't mean anything to me, so I don't know, but like football stadium size shows that she's opening up next year. That's wild. But it seems like she's had that in her, like she's got that thing.
Yeah, I guess so, because like, like half a year ago when I first started kind of like checking her out, I mean, she was definitely, making some waves, and then all of a sudden she went out with Sarah, and the next thing you know, like I go by her, I'm scrolling through the Instagram, I go by her page, and like you said, she's opening up. I know nothing about pop country either. Like, I like Jason Isbell's probably like the furthest into that realm of that. Like, and I mean, he's great. I mean, I don't even consider him in that realm, but a lot of people will dance in that same same genre, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, she's really cool, and like like all these people I have found over the last couple of years, through streaming, and I hate it. You know, I mean, and I mean, I'm not anything big, but I took my music all down off the streaming sites for a while because I just like something in me was really just bummed out about it. But it's just like it's just a necessary evil at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other side of that coin is that, especially now, if vinyl is going to take a year to press, like that's how people are going to hear your music unless they already own it. So it's I can see where people in your situation struggle with that sort of, like, which is better, the sort of artistic integrity side or the just getting people to hear your music. And then on my side, we get this thing where, like, I can stream music. I don't usually use Spotify and all those things. I like to buy music and download it and put it on my phone and whatever. But then I get this thing where there's somebody that I think is really good. And I think that because I think somebody is really good, well, everybody must think that they're really good, because who am I? Like, and then you realize that because there's so much music out there now, I might have just stumbled upon the right thing at the right time. So I like the band we were talking about, the band Weekend Friends earlier. I think that band is phenomenal. And I think their new album is great. And they've got like, I hate that this is even a barometer, but they've got like 6,000 fans on Facebook. And I'm like, well, but that band seems really good. They should have a lot more than that. But then you look at a band like, whether it's pop country or some of the weird, like the weird screamo stuff that came out of like 10 years ago, that those bands have millions of followers. I'm like, what the hell? Like, A, I've never heard of them and they're sort of related to my scene, and B, I don't understand it at all. And then you feel like an old guy.
Yeah, I feel like an old guy all the time. Though I didn't say that because my son went out to see Bob Dylan, which I thought was pretty cool. He's
That's
just
awesome.
like, yeah, you know, it's cool. I don't really try to influence him on music. I mean, I play so much music in the house that I'm sure like whatever I'm doing is rubbing off on, but he's got his own vibe, you know. He's like hip hop and loves hardcore and like loves punk rock, and he's got his own thing going on. But I always feel like an old guy when he's talking about certain things, you know, like, and he's got a real eclectic look at music. You know, like he likes Bob Dylan and likes like some, you know, blues and folk and old country. You know, you'll hear him playing like Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings and like, you know, and then next thing you know, he's playing the Wu-Tang Clan and Minor Threat, right? So it's like,
that's pretty awesome.
It is pretty cool. I mean, I was thinking about it too. Like, I mean, originally, like, I think the first cassette I ever bought was maybe Public Enemy and The Story of the Clash, were like the, you know, because like I grew up, like my mother was like, you know, in my house growing up, it was like when music started sounding cool to me, which is very young, my mother was listening to like U2, the Dylan, Springsteen, you know, some other stuff that I don't really remember now, the Rolling Stones maybe. And then like when I was able to go out and get my own stuff, I started listening to like Public Enemy, Run DMC, right? And then it went from like that to like the Clash, you know, the Sex Pistols. And it's just like, it seems like it's like that for most people who really love music, right? You find one that you really love, but if you really like music, you'll roll around in the bushes for a while.
Yeah, and you do have to learn to go backwards, like, because we grew up, I mean, obviously we're about the same age, so we grew up after the Sex Pistols, after the Ramones were really in their heyday, after the Clash were really in their heyday. Although I do remember, I was thinking about this the other day, one of the first videos that I remember seeing on MTV was the Clash's Rock the Casbah. And I remember, like, I can't necessarily remember what else I would have seen around that time, but I have a specific memory around like the old TV tray, because like the stand that my parents' TV was on, and we had the slide cable box thing, you know, like, because you only had 36 channels or whatever it was if you were lucky. And I can picture them running around in the desert in the oil rig, and Mick dressed up in like the caftan or whatever it's called. And I remember going, that's really cool. I didn't know it was punk rock or whatever, and I didn't know from the Clash when I was 6 years old, but I remember that video. And so it was sort of funny to think back that, wow, all these years later, that band became one of the most important bands in my life, but not during the time that they were active, you know?
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, where I grew up, I mean, you know, I think back now and sometimes go, oh, you know, I don't really like to pay too much homage to where I grew up because it's not my thing anyway. But then I think about it and I go, wow, though, you know, like growing up, the older kids like lived and breathed the Clash, right? So like, and you know, you look up to the older kids growing up.
Yeah.
Necessarily what punk rock is because a lot of them weren't, but the Clash just covered all realms, right? I mean, if you were like, if as far as I'm concerned, if you don't like the Clash, I got an issue with you. I mean, I can go, you know, you can dislike who you want, but I mean, the Clash is the Clash, right? And so like, it's kind of funny because that's like my common denominator. Like, you know, it's funny because like, you know, I love punk rock, grew up in punk rock. I've been to a ton of shows, you know, but also like at some point in my life, I started going down another lane with my music, you know, and I like singer-songwriters and I like, you know, old country and I like blues. And I mean, I think everyone that's a musician might do this to a point, you know, and then I come full circle and now I'm in my 40s and here I am liking all the stuff.
Yeah.
Still not playing punk rock. It's kind of funny, you know, I'm just a guy with an acoustic, but I don't know, man, I do pretty well and I love it. And you know, and it's just funny to think that, you know, where I was at that age and where I am now, it's like, it is kind of full circle.
Well, and I think that to give yourself credit, if calling yourself punk rock is giving yourself credit, but I think it is because I think that while the music might not be, you know, it's not the Ramones, obviously, that you play, but you're in that group of guys that like your ethos and your core is punk rock, like through and through. The way you do things, the sort of DIY nature of things, the way that you look at things, sort of socially and politically, and looking out for the people that are like there's a line in that song Heartache and Love, which is on the new album, which is part of why we're talking, is called Heartache and Love. Digitally it came out in June and someday it'll come out on vinyl. I don't actually know what the date is. I don't know if you know what the date is. It feels like everything is just in a black hole now, but there's a line in that song Heartache and Love, which is that advocating for those who can't advocate for themselves. That's punk rock, right? That's kind of what Joe Strummer taught us, right? And so you don't have to play 3 chords to be punk rock, you know?
Very true, you know, and yeah, that album does come out, and I think the vinyl will be out in January. So I did a pre-order, which went pretty well, and I'm supposed to be getting them. I think I'm getting my vinyl this week or next week, which is crazy. And then it goes out, you know, I'll start sending out the pre-orders and. Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to hear that. It's like reassuring that, like, sometimes I feel like I have that imposter syndrome, right? Like I'll be.
Oh, don't we all?
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I guess we all, in some way or form or another, are imposters, right?
Right.
But you know, I mean, I guess, you know, I got to think back of like when I started, you know, playing out and like, yeah, I wasn't, you know, really. I was playing a lot in the South Shore because they paid us money, you know, like I remember like bringing bands to the Beachcomber before like bands went to the Beachcomber. It was like mainly cover bands. And there was like, I always had some sort of Quincy band that was like playing the Quincy bars that like we got paid. And I would bring like musicians in from town and they would be like, what do you mean I get $500 for the night? You know, I'm getting $500. So like, well, this is what happens when you bring people in, and I'm not knocking any of the clubs. I mean, it's just it's the way the ball bounces. Like we're in the South Shore. I mean,
right.
And you know, at some point I started making my way into town, and like, you know, I befriended guys like Lenny, and you know, it's just kind of funny how I ended up in this little racket, but I love it. You know, I love all the bands I play with, and you know, it is such a good scene, the Boston scene. It can be kind of like the who knows who, and it can also be really cool and really tight knit too, right? So it's that whole Boston attitude. Really.
That's Boston in a nutshell. Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, you know, when I was growing up in Quincy, a friend of mine who later on ended up playing drums in a band of mine, he was the drummer for the Dogmatics, who were like, you know, they're one of my all-time favorite Boston bands, you know, and I love that era of Boston music, Neighborhoods, Dogmatics, you know, the Del Fuegos, the Outlets.
The Outlets, yep.
So like, you know, I kind of like, I probably drift more towards that, but you know, and and then the Dropkick Murphys come along, and then, you know, the Boss Stones come along, you know, and then the Dropkicks, and then all these great bands start coming out, you know, and Blockbuster. Lenny Lashley. I mean, my favorite stuff is Lenny and the Piss Poor Boys.
Yeah. The only bar I've ever been kicked out of in my life is the Cambridgeport Saloon.
Really?
To make a Lenny and the Piss Poor Boys reference. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't legally allowed to be there anyway. I was a kid, and we were going to, I was actually just looking this up the other day. I have a list that started in a notebook of all the shows I've ever been to. And now it's now because it's the computer age. Now it's all in like a Google Doc or whatever, but the original notebook is still there. And it just came upon like the 20-somethingth anniversary of that show. It's just a buddy of mine and I go into I forget even what show it was off the top, the Royal Crown Review at the Middle East. If you remember the Royal, for like that 6 months or so that Swing came back and was big in like 99. So that means I was like 20 years old. So I couldn't legally be drinking at the Cambridgeport Saloon anyway. That doesn't mean I wasn't. Sorry, Dad, if you're listening. But yeah, then that's the one bar I've ever been asked to leave.
Really?
And I like telling Lenny that story because this obviously some shit went down at the Cambridgeport Saloon over the years, and I ended up getting kicked out. Like not just for sitting at the bar drinking a Guinness.
Wow, that's great. I mean, that song means something to you.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Think back and go, hey, I mean, I wasn't lucky enough to even go to the Cambridgeport. I always hear that song and go, damn, I really wish that I drank at the Cambridgeport. And somewhere along the line in telling a white lie, I've probably told someone, oh yeah, you know, I'm turning them on the Lenny, like I'm drinking the Cambridgeport.
Yeah.
No.
I think Lenny actually gave me my copy of that CD. We met, I don't know, we were talking about something years ago, interview wise, before we were doing the podcast thing. This whole thing started because our website crashed. I used to do a lot of interviews, but I like to pretend that I'm a writer. So I like to write stories and whatever. And then when the website crashed, I couldn't write stories anymore. And then I couldn't go to shows and take pictures. So we started pretending that I'm a white guy with a beard who lives in the suburbs. So of course I host a podcast now. But it was meeting up with Lenny to do press for something solo related, but it wasn't Piss Poor Boys. I think he gave me my copy of that CD. And I remember I said, oh, Cambridgeport Saloon. That's the only place I've ever gotten kicked out of. And I will retell him that every now and then when I see him. It's you're right. It does mean something to me. That album means a lot to a lot of people, but especially locally. But that fun memories.
That album actually means a lot to me. And it's funny because I was recording an album with some friends of mine back then in the same place he was recording. So that's kind of how I got to really, I mean, I'd seen Blockbuster, but I'd never really known much about Lenny doing this, you know, country thing or whatever you want to call it. I remember like my friend played drums for them as well. My friend Tommy Long, who also played in a band with me, he played drums for Lenny and the Piss Poor Boys. And he once told me like, oh, you got to check out this band. You got to check out this band. And it's great. And I think at the time he wasn't even using a drum kit. He had like a suitcase and like he was doing just really cool, you know, like, I mean, that's Lenny in a nutshell, right? I mean, that album to me is like, when I think of Lenny, I think of that album. Like I love Blockbuster, and I love Blockbuster songs, but when I listen to that album, I'm like, that's the Lenny I know. I feel like it comes right out on that album, you know?
Yeah, and I think that he went a long way. I mean, I'm probably getting the timeline wrong a little bit, but I think that album in particular did a lot to sort of open up the punk rock scene to stuff that wasn't traditionally punk rock. I mean, I know there's other guys who've had acoustic guitars and whatever, but I think that sort of like, I think that because of Lenny's street cred, especially from Darkbuster, I feel like that album was so well received by people who write songs and people who make music that it sort of opened the door to a lot of other things to be a little bit more accepted in punk rock. Because I can remember days when I remember going to a Newbury Comics. I grew up in Southern New Hampshire. I grew up in Nashville, New Hampshire. So we didn't really have a scene. We had like 6 kids who were into punk rock basically, and all the older kids weren't into punk rock. If anything, they were into metal, like
Yeah.
because it was late 80s, early 90s, so they were all into Metallica and Whitesnake and Van Halen and shit like that. So I can remember going to buy a Bruce Springsteen Greatest Hits CD at Newbury Comics and feeling a little embarrassed because I was with like the punk rock kids and Bruce Springsteen wasn't punk rock. He wasn't punk rock when you're a 16-year-old kid listening to Guttermouth or whatever. But when you step back and look at it, it's like, oh, well, no, he definitely, like, he fits the mold. But I think that guys like Lenny really did a lot to sort of like bring everybody else in from a lot of different worlds. And then so it became, everything just sort of became punk rock. It was more about your mentality and your work ethic and whatever, and your connection to other people rather than just to play, 180 beats per minute, like,
Yeah, I mean, I owe him a lot. He definitely brought me around. I did some shows with him, and like people would be coming out. They were coming to shows. I was bringing him to Quincy. He was doing some shows in Quincy with my band at the time, and I was kind of being introduced to more of those people, right? That type of person that like really dug that vibe, right? The acoustic playing, troubadour kind of thing, right? He's a big reason why I probably met some of the people I met, and it's just like everything just kind of started. I started, meeting more musicians other than kind of staying in that South Shore bracket. I started playing better places, different clubs, traveling regionally, and I've done a lot of regional shows with him. But he's a trip, man. I love playing with Lenny. I got a show with him this Friday. We'll see, this Sunday. Oh man, Friday and Sunday, it's a mess up.
It's all the same nowadays.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that, and one of the last shows I did before we went to Europe 2020 in the States, we played down in Asbury Park, which I know you go down there quite a bit.
Of course. Yep.
That place awesome it was.
One of my favorite places. Yeah. One of my favorite places. Yep.
Yeah. It's like some people might not understand this. I don't know. Every time I've played down there twice. I've played in Jersey a handful of times. I've played down there twice. And it's just like, it's got a great vibe, man. It's like, no, I don't know. You some of those clubs, even if like we played a pretty decent crowd that night, but even one time I played to basically no one. I might have just played to Chris Skell, to be honest with you. Oh, there was a lot more people there than that, but it was like bands, but it just got a great vibe. Right. So
yeah, and you feel it when you're there, or at least I do, but like you feel the sort of energy there. And I know Asbury Park has changed, and I know if this conversation were happening in 1992 or whatever, then Asbury Park was a very different place. But I still feel like that boardwalk and the Stone Pony and the Asbury Lanes and the convention center, like you can feel the, like, I don't want to say the ghost of Bruce Springsteen because he's still alive and still goes there all the time, but like you kind of feel it there when you're there. It's almost like a magical place.
Absolutely. And I don't even know how we got there. That's pretty good though.
Yeah, right.
Down there with Lenny, it was the last one I played. Him and I do a lot of shows together. I guess what I'm getting, my point is like, it's once again, it brings it back to the community of musicians. And like you said, and he did open that door. There was a lot of people that started like mixing after that around here, and yeah, man, like I said, it's like, it doesn't look like I'm going to be stopped. It doesn't look like I'm, I got a lot of shows coming up, so I'm pretty excited about 2022.
Because you are going back to Europe with Chuck Reagan. Like that stuff all from 2020 all got bumped to 22, right? With Chuck Reagan and Chris Creswell.
Yeah, correct. Actually, 10 minutes before I got on Zoom TV with you, I just confirmed another tour that's going to be pretty fun. That hopefully it's announced in the next week or two. I hope. So that was pretty cool. And then I'm going out with Chuck Reagan, which is like, come on, man. I don't.
One of the first conversations I ever had with Chuck, not to bring everything back to Lenny, but because he knew I was calling him from the Boston area, he said, "Oh, so you must know my old pal Lenny Lashley." I was like, That is not a thing I expected to come up in this conversation. He's like, I love that man. Like he's one of my favorite songwriters, and I wish I could do like the Chuck Reagan growl thing. But man, he went on and on about his love for Lenny. I think that was awesome. It was totally caught me off guard too.
Wow. So at least we've figured out that all roads lead to Lenny Lashley.
All roads lead to Lenny.
So Lenny, if you listen to this, all roads Lenny Lashley. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. You know, that once again, that was something that happened out of me going over to Europe. I mean, obviously that opened up a lot of doors for me, and you know, I could never. I mean, I'm just so grateful for the Dropkick Murphys, what they've done for me. You know, I mean, you know, they're good people. They're great to be out on the road with, and Chuck's, you know, that's one of the reasons why I'm going out with Chuck. It was just a connection through that whole thing in Europe, and man, that's pretty cool, huh?
And Chris Creswell's no slouch either. Chris Creswell, that kid can write a song. I call him a kid. He's like 32, but that kid can write a song.
Well, I thought he was a little older than that. He's only 32, huh?
I'm pretty sure if my math, I think he's only like 32. I like the whole band is all the same age, and I think they're all like a decade younger than me. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm getting old. Oh well, what are you gonna do?
I was quite literally, so what I was doing 10 minutes before is looking at old Dying Scene sessions. We used to have a guy that recorded acoustic sessions for a lot of singer-songwriters, and he did one with two of the guys from the Flatliners, and I think it was like 11 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago. And I just happened to look at the video just before we started this conversation, and my Lord, Chris Creswell looks like he's 14. I'm like, oh God.
Wow.
He was, and he was probably, I would say he was probably 20 or 21. He just looked like a kid. He's baby faced anyway, but he's another one of my favorite songwriters. Like, I genuinely wish I could go to Europe and just follow that tour between you and Creswell and Chuck. That's an amazing tour.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, trust me, I think about it. I'm still, like actually when he announced it again, like a month ago, I was like, man, I'm still on this tour. That's good. You know, I was like, really, I was bummed out because all these things was just like canceling and going away.
Sure.
Like, oh, please don't let this one go away. Cause I love Chuck Reagan, you know, and I think, you know, I just dig his whole vibe, right? You know, I mean, you follow him on Instagram and he's like, well, it's like fly fishing or something like that, correct? And it's like, you know, like it's just the real deal as far as I'm concerned. I feel like that, you know, what you get from him is just Chuck Reagan. You're not getting anything else, right? So I'm really forward to it, but you never know, you know. I mean, I haven't been on the road with him yet, but I'm thinking it's going to be.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good one. Let's talk. I don't want to take, Jesus, we're at like an hour now. I don't want to take up your whole evening. But let's talk a little bit more about the album, because again, that's kind of what we were going to talk about, and we made it to an hour. We mentioned it a couple of times, but like I said, the new album is called Heartache and Love. When did the real writing process for this album come together? Did it come to you through quarantine, or were you working on it before?
When I came home from Europe, I wrote that song, Heartache and Love. And I went into the studio and I messed around, I recorded, and I wasn't really thinking about it. And I put it away, and I posted like a clip of it online on Instagram, and someone hit me up that's in the music world and was pretty impressed by it and said, hey man, that's really cool. You're working on a new album. And I said, no, I'm not, but it like got my wheels turning, you know, and I started throwing around some ideas with that person, and because of COVID, it just kind of, it just went sour. Not in a bad way, sour, just, you know, it just, COVID stopped everything. That's how it should.
It couldn't happen. Yeah.
But I said to myself, all right, maybe that will happen some other time down the road. It just wasn't meant to be right now, but I didn't want to stop writing. So I kept writing songs, and Brian Charles, who did my previous album, that was, you know, it was mainly done live, was had a studio open, and we were able to do a lot of social distancing and do it like under the COVID restrictions, you know. So I just went in, started writing music, and next you know, I had an album, and I was pretty happy. You know, in between that, I went in and did a little like 2-song single with them. And I really like that. That was just a live thing. It was great. I put it out, had a good time, and I just didn't want to stop making music. I figured if I was going to be like held up and not playing shows, I was going to make an album, and I did. And I'm pretty proud of that album. You know, Brian Charles Zipper Studios, he produced it, and I think he mixed the Weekend Friends.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Mixed their album. I think one of them might have produced it, you know, and so yeah, I have an album, and I was able to stay creative, right? You know, and I don't know if that had anything to do with the Americana Artist of the Year thing. I don't know. I mean, that was pretty weird too. I know we talked about that before we came on.
Yeah.
That was pretty strange to wake up and see my name, you know, there with Lenny, by the way, and amongst many other talented musicians too. And yeah, I don't know, man. I guess I just did what I knew how to do, and I just made music, right? You know, and I'm pretty happy with most of the album. You know, we always, at least I always look back and go, man, I could have done stuff so much different, you know, but I'm still not there with making albums, right? I'm like a live performer. I consider myself a live musician. So like making albums to me is not new. I've been doing it for a long time, but this was the first one I put a little more stock into it than the other ones, you know, and now I have an album, and it's still pretty messed up out there, and I haven't been able to or play shows to promote it, but I have an album. And then, like I said, tonight I just confirmed a month tour that's going to be, you know, great. Hopefully I can sell some copies of my album, get it out there, and keep the ball rolling. And since I've made that album to now, I've written another album.
Oh wow! So you haven't stopped. Yeah,
I've been just writing songs, man, and it's good, and it's because I'm living life. You know, when you show up for life, the songs just show up to you. You know, it's like whenever I found myself like getting down or being like, oh, why aren't I doing shows like this guy or this girl? And that's when I'm not doing anything, right? But the minute I let all that go and live life and show up for life and do what I know how to do, and that's make music, it all works fine, you know? If that made any sense to you.
No, it absolutely did. It absolutely did. Did the events of the last 18 months, because it hasn't obviously been just the COVID shutdown, although that's been a lot of it, but there's also been a lot of like a sea change in the Black Lives Matter movement, in the defunding the police movement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the sort of social justice issues that sort of came to the forefront because they had to, because we were all stuck at home. So we had nothing to do but watch TV and doom scroll Twitter all the time. So we could actually watch this shit as it happened and not just put it in the background. But you've obviously always been a guy that had his sort of ear to the street that way. Did that sort of lend itself to songwriting, making things either harder or easier because you had so much to sort of pull from?
I mean, I write from the perspective of what I'm seeing, you know, and for me, it doesn't always mean like, hey, this is what I stand for and this is what I don't. Yeah. Sometimes it's from that perspective, right? And you know, for some reason, when you write something that has like a protest feeling or a message, people automatically think you're political, right? And I am. I'm not going to go down that road. I mean, I have my ideology, but you know, I keep that pretty private. Even though probably know by talking to me, you know, that I certain things we probably meet on. Some things we might not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I write from that perspective. Usually, when I'm writing, it's something that's going on around me. I mean, it was hard, you know, it was hard to like see all this going on. And not that I've written a lot of songs that are protesty sort of songs, but I always got a little bit of a hidden message in there, you know, how I feel, like, you know, I'm not going to cram it down your throat, but I'm definitely going to let you know that it might be bothering me a little bit, or I might have something to say about something, you know. I'm not going to stand down and, you know, see things going on around me that are wrong and not say anything about them, because I'm not so articulate where, like, you know, I can get up and sometimes get it across by talking to you, right? But sometimes in music, I can get stuff across that I want to, So I guess it's a complex way of saying
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I think that obviously if people are paying attention to your songwriting, they can get it. It might not be in your face, like you said, but at the same time, like you can't really come from the tree of Joe Strummers and the Johnny Cashes and and those guys and Woody Guthrie's and whatever, and not have the ability or not have and not say something. You know what I mean? Like you can't follow in those sort of footsteps. And I know that those are big footsteps. It's like comparing a quarterback to Tom Brady because those guys are like, but you can't really follow in those footsteps and not be saying something,
I agree. It's just like you're trying to carry the torch, right? Is really what you're trying to do. Like, I mean, and for me right now in life, in a lot of what's going on and whatever's going on in people's lives, that torch is dim right now, right?
Yeah.
I got to relight that torch. I just want to be one of the people that, maybe down the road I say, hey man, I was on the right side of history and I tried, and I'm not saying what I believe in and what I don't believe in. I'm just saying that, like, I always like to think that I'm going to carry the torch and question things, right? Even if 10 years from now, I look back and say, wow, I was a real dope to think that way.
Yeah,
At least
sure. Yeah.
Something in me said, this is wrong, or man, maybe we could change this. And I don't know, I mean, that's just how I've always been, I've been like that since I've been a kid, and it's just like, I don't know, you got to question everything, right? If you don't question things, then I don't know.
That's what the Boss Tones taught us in '93. Question the answers, right? Like
absolutely.
The Boston Police car on the front of the album. Like that's, without saying it, that's what, like, question the shit that's going on around you. Come to your own conclusions, but ask the questions and do the work. And one thing I appreciate that you said is that you're at least open to maybe 10 years down the road, you go, oh, I had the wrong point of view on that. But at least you're open to saying, yeah, I had the wrong point of view on that. Like some people stick to those guns till, well past when they should have.
Yeah, it's like it's not, for me, it's not my way or the highway, right? It never has been. It's just like even tonight, right before I got on with you, I'm scrolling through the phone, and unfortunately, I'm scrolling through the phone. I'm not even watching news anymore, right?
Yeah.
There was another shooting in Michigan. It's like, and once again, I'm not going to get on some anti-gun or I have my own views on that stuff, and I don't expect everyone to live by that. But man, is that sad? It's like that to me. It's just like, why doesn't that open up everyone's eyes? Like, hey man, I'm not trying to take your guns. I just don't want to see this happening anymore, right? I'm for making everything work, I guess. Like, let's meet halfway. Let's meet in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
There's no middle ground with people. It's like it's just so polarized, right?
Right. And people tend to think that when you start to relay a point of view that's different than theirs, then automatically that puts up walls, and so it means you're against me. Well, it doesn't mean I'm against you. It means that I don't agree with you. But that doesn't mean we can't still have a conversation about it. And like, just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean that we can't talk. Maybe there are some things that the last 4-year administration kind of changed that math a little bit in some areas, but not in a lot of them. And frankly, it's sad that it took a global pandemic and no kids being in school to get to a point where then there weren't school shootings for a while.
I know.
Like,
it's it's like it's sad, I'm trying to be present and I'm trying to be, a walking, an example to my children, and I just want them to know that I think about these things. I might have an opinion that they don't like, but I want them to know that I think about it. It's like, maybe, I might lean this way on one thing, lean this way on another, but I want my children to know that I'm not like just a one-sided guy,
Yeah.
I'm a human being. I'm like I'm for being, I'm for humanity, I guess. I'm cut from that Joe Strummer way of thinking. I think if I got anything out of that Clash, it's like there are some people out there that are real big Clash fans, and I'd like to strip their rights right from them. Oh man,
I've got a list. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, there absolutely are. There are people that I have had conversations with, let's say within the last calendar year, that are known Clash fans, and that you kind of go, boy, you kind of missed the point there, didn't you?
I think so.
Like the whole Joe Strummer, like without people, you're nothing, is one of my favorite Joe Strummer quotes. I've got the stickers on my back of my laptop. Some people didn't quite interpret that the same way. And I'll leave that there so as to keep everything vague. But
wow, man, this was great. I mean, we covered a lot of ground there.
Yeah, seriously.
It was good though. I listened to the last couple ones, the last couple you did, and like I think I watched a few of the Instagram ones, and I've always kind of like, I always keep my head in the game. I always see what's going on. I mean, you are definitely someone that always tries to keep it moving in the right direction, which is great. I mean, we need more people like you, like
I don't like, I'd like to be involved, and I haven't played music outside my own living room, or in this case, because my telly's right next to me outside my front porch, in years. That's just hasn't been my thing. But at least this has been my way of sort of A, staying creative, but B, being even a little bit involved in the scene and sort of documenting the scene. I was talking to a friend a few years ago, about not really wanting to take pictures at shows anymore. I was kind of getting tired. And he plays in a band locally. And he said, you can't stop doing that. Like you're documenting a scene. Like there are things that happen that you catch on film that nobody else will. And those are going to be memories to some people to like carry forward, like those specific shows, even if it's just, 70 kids at O'Brien's at a show on a Saturday night or whatever. Like you're documenting a scene. That's an important part of helping it stay alive. And I was like, oh, well, now I feel guilty. I can't ever stop taking pictures at shows.
No, I was just thinking as you were saying that, I was like, oh yeah, he's taken some of my favorite pictures from a couple of Wreck the Hall shows. I still look at those pictures, go, I love this picture. There's like, you took one of my amps that I used to have it said like, no
the Irish. Yeah.
I had that. I forget what they call that. I forget. And I have that and I love looking at that picture. And it's always been such a controversial picture because people think they don't get what I'm saying out of it, and they're always like, whoa, what does that mean? Just look it up. No, it's just right. Like, but I mean, you took that picture and there was a couple more that you took that I still look at and I go, wow, man, this is great. I got documentation of this, because there was no one else out there taking pictures of me that night.
Yeah. I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing either. I just know the stuff that I like to look at. Like it's nice to take pictures of the bands actually playing, but I also like to take pictures of things like that, things on amps, or I have a thing for taking pictures of like guitar players' hands. Like there's something to me that just like, the face is what you're looking at and what everybody's staring at, but I like taking pictures of guitar players' hands. Piano players sometimes, but that's a weird angle. But or of like the minutes in between songs when they're not necessarily singing, but somebody might be like looking off to the side or stuck in their own head for a little bit. Like I like trying to catch those things because it's not just, I love taking pictures of bands actually performing too. But I don't know. I like to try to put things together like that to tell a little bit more of a story. I don't know where I got that idea from. It's just cool to me. So I hope other people like it.
People appreciate it, man. I mean, you're a staple in the Boston music scene. I mean, everyone knows you, and like, it's great. It's good. I mean, where would you get the great pictures from if there wasn't someone like you down there taking them, right? And it's cool, man. It's like, I'm glad that things are opening up. I hope they stay that way, and Will they? Who knows? I don't know. We don't know. I mean, we keep it in the day, right? As we
Yeah.
we
And,
only way to live.
and I think it's going to kind of maybe go like this for a while. There's going to be months where things are open and months where we have to pull back a little bit. And, I think we're sort of stuck in the new normal. And I hate to use that terminology, but I think we're stuck in this pattern for a little bit.
I think so.
But it's just a matter of people sort of like, A, what are you personally comfortable with going out and doing? And B, what should the rest of us be comfortable with going out and doing? And so, like, how do we balance those of you that make money or make a living in that industry? And that has to be accounted for too. But I think we're sort of at a place where we're going to be figuring it out as we go for a while.
I think so. Which is, it's not always a bad thing either, I mean,
Yeah, right. I think a lot of good is actually going to come out of, like, I say what you will about live streams, and I probably OD'd on them at some points along the way because I had watched so many, but I'm sort of glad that they happened. And part of me hopes that they don't go away in some capacity, because I like, there might be bands playing together or shows happening that aren't coming around here. But if there's a $10 live stream option, so you can watch whatever, Lucero at Red Rocks, or Jason Isbell at the Ryman Auditorium, or a bunch of California punk bands playing in California at a big thing that's not going to come out here. Like, I like being able to sit on my couch and watch that stuff too.
100%, and I agree. I mean, I do agree with that tenfold, like see Tim Barry. He's always doing a surprise.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty cool. Like, he doesn't show up anywhere on social media, and then out of the blue, he's like, I'm doing a stage show Thursday night. But I mean, that's exactly what you would expect from a guy like that, right?
Yeah, and like, here's a bunch of like Avail themed Christmas t-shirts. It's like, what the fuck?
That guy's fantastic. I played a show with him like a couple of years ago, and I didn't really get to talk to him. I think I might talk to him for like a minute or two, but I could
Nobody does. Yeah, he does it. He does it like, he's got a weird, I love that man to death. He's got a weird like social anxiety thing. Like, he doesn't really like talking at shows and after shows. He just like, he'll just get out the back door.
Yeah, he's in his zone, man. I guess some people need to just be in their zone, but hey, that's why we got live streams, because like I said, I'll probably, I don't know the next time he'll be up this way, but he's done a few live streams in the last year,
Yep.
So yeah, I really like to see, and who knows? All I know is I hope 2022 brings some different things down the pipeline, and I think they will. There's a lot of good bands putting out albums once again, like Michael Caine. I mean, in the Morning Afters, he's putting out. Lenny's going to be putting out.
Lenny has an album that hopefully everybody else gets to hear, because it's really friggin' good.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure there's a million other bands putting something out, but I mean, I'm pretty excited for those guys. Like I know Mike's been talking about his for a long time now, and I'm finally glad to see that he can put it out, because so it's great.
It's hard for you guys, and I'll stop recording shortly, but people can pick up the new album. I'll put links in the descriptions to where they can buy the album and where they can stream the album, as long as that's available, and all the YouTube videos and stuff like that. But they'll go find it and it'll be out, and hopefully there's tour dates coming. So